All right. Well, just want to start off by reposting these two links. The first one is a Google Doc where I'll be copy and pasting some code that you can just copy paste yourself. And the second one is a Unity package for a completed version of the part 1 workshop with everything that worked in it, in case things weren't working out last time and you just want a working version. You will have to set up the project settings and reinstall Unity or reinstall Mirror like last time, because it's just the standalone scripts without the networking, without the Mirror or the project settings set up. But yeah, any questions from last time? No? All right then. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to get through it. The part 2 of the workshop, it's going to be mainly going to be covering an online game loop. So that's going to be a game manager. And then that's going to be like just live programming from scratch. And then if there's still time after that, I have some slides about what to do for instantiating prefabs and doing projectiles, as well as just some more additional resources after that. And then just like all of your other classes, these slides will be available. So yeah. All right. So starting off with the downloads again. And then the game manager will be doing is going to have, these are the goals the game manager has to do. Well, for one, it has to be server authoritative. We don't want each of the clients to be running their own game manager. There should only just be one. Well, okay, let me backtrack on that. Every client is going to have its own game manager, but the job of the client side game manager is just to take inputs from the server side game manager. And then the game manager is also going to have to be instanced such that there's only one and you can access it from anywhere. And then here are the tasks the game manager has to do. It's going to handle player respawning. It's going to handle keeping track of players' lives and their score. There's going to be some game states. So in a way, this is like a state machine. When you first join the game, it's going to be waiting for players. And then after that period's over, we're going to be in an in-game state. And then that's where the majority of the gameplay is happening. And then once all the players die, or you have one person left with all their lives, then you're going to be in the end game state where you show the winner. And then the players can't respawn during that. And then the final stage is just where you restart and go back to in-game after the fact. There's going to be some functions that work as triggers so that you can start the round as well as end the round. Kind of self-explanatory. That just lets us access those things from elsewhere. And then also just the server messages, because we don't have a HUD. So we're just going to be using server messages instead. And then the only prerequisite really is that we have to rewrite some of the player respawn code, because right now it's client side. And so we just have to rewrite it a little bit so it works with server side. Some other things. Oh yeah, I meant to add instant into here, but that's okay. We're going to be using enums, which they can be put through commands in clients, RPCs, because they're actually just integers. It's just they're translated into like a string or something like that. And then coroutines, which I've already used them in the code a little bit for, well, I forgot for what already, but they basically allow putting a delay on a function by yielding the return, however that works. But we're going to be using it for like an intermission state. Because like the waiting for players is going to be an enum on a delay to try and go to the next game state. Okay, so yep, that's all. There's only 2 slides for that. And then I already got Unity open. And I already got Visual Studio open. Do you want me
Oh,
to?
just a real quick tip. Instead of opening a file by double clicking on it, right click, click open C# project, and then open the solution file. That way, all of your, almost to the bottom, open C# project. Yeah, click that.
Well, I already have it open.
Well, yes, but it'll open with, the Solution Explorer on the side as well. And, all of the imports will have their documentation now.
Hmm. Oh, is that if you use the package?
Because I'm just saying, if you directly open the semi-solid, you won't be able to like go to the reference of whatever you're using is, I think. I'm
Well,
not sure.
I, this is just my project from last week, so I'm just gonna.
Also, I don't, because I see also there's on void update and void start, it says Unity message above it. And I see it doesn't on your screen.
Well, this is my project from last week, so it should just work for me, I guess. I'm
No, I'm
not
not
sure
saying
if
open
the.
a different project. I'm just saying when you say open C# project, you can open the .sln file with Visual Studio.
Okay, then.
And it'll also give you like the file explorer on the one side of the screen in Visual Studio.
I don't ever use that, so I'm just gonna stick with this. Anyway, uh, let's start by going to the online scene. And actually, I will pull up my other game manager script. I'm just gonna go ahead and create a new script here and call it game manager. And then when you name something game manager, Unity automatically gives it like a cogwheel um, icon, which is pretty neat. So this is just my old game manager from my FPS game, and I'm just gonna be reusing a lot of this really. Um, I've got my game states in here. I've got some floats in here for an intermission time, um, some lists, and this is the part that I wanted to copy because this part will be for uh, making sure that there's only one instance of the game manager and that we can reference it anywhere, like a static. What if that just works if you copy paste that from the document? using mirror at the top because it's going to be networked. Okay. Maybe I should be putting comments in there. Or is it kind of self-explanatory? Okay. And also got to add a float for our number of teams and the scores, points to win, intermission time, round time. I don't think we get a round time. Scores. If we're just doing lives, these will be lives. Points to win will be. I think this is all we need. Does copying and pasting work even though it's like the tabs are all messed up like that? Oh, Bailey says it's working.
Yeah, when you paste it, it automatically tabs things as it should.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Also in C# spacing is irrelevant. At least to the compiler, it's irrelevant.
It's good for developers though to be able to read their code.
Okay, so what do we want to do first? We want to do stuff to set up players. So that's what these two pieces do. So every time a player connects, it'll refresh the all players list. And every time a player disconnects, it'll also refresh the all players list. So I'll just put some comments in here before I paste this. So refresh. And then you see I put some comments in here that tell you that this is server side, so that the clients never have this list filled out. It's always just going to be empty for them. Oh. So I can just put a comment, or I can put a comment here too. Does copy pasting still work if it's over multiple pages? We can start doing the start function. Start. And all I did here was, well, this is all for like setting up the scores, but we don't need that. Well, actually, we do need scores. And
are we giving it a network behavior?
Yes.
Game manager? Okay.
Yeah, it's using mirror and it's network behavior. Lives, it's going to be a new integer, which is going to be, it's going to rename this to I'm just going to create the waiting for players coroutine. Initialize game. Oh. Okay. Oops. I'm just going to put the live skin again. Because why not? And yeah, okay, that's basically all we can do right now. So I'm just gonna. Why is there a missing bracket?
Just put one at the bottom and it should be fine.
Oh, okay. All right, so I'm just gonna copy paste this whole thing. So what we have here is we have refreshing all the players, and then we also have on the start, when this script is started, it's going to reset the lives to be the start lives. Actually, this is not right. This must be number of players, because that is the number of, yeah, that is the number of players that exists. The wonders of doing things live, huh? You want to just hard code it? You can make it 8. New int 8. Actually, that's a bad idea because we already have a list of all the players. Oh, I know what to do. We do all players. Just got the length of it. Length. Yep. So we create an array of integers that's the length of however many number of players there are. And we're going to assign each player to one of those slots. Actually, that might not be the best way to do it, because you could just have each player keep track of their own lives, which we already did from before. So maybe you don't even need to have this in the game manager, but this will be useful for like doing a HUD where you like press tab and see like all everyone's scores. But we might not even use that, honestly.
I've looked for the references. So far, we're only assigning it, but never using it.
Yeah, because that would be used like later on. No, we haven't even gone to like how it is yet. So now, once the game is initialized, this is when we want to respawn people manually. So like if people are just messing around, then you'd want to like start the game and force them to respawn. So now we'd want to start implementing server-side respawning. So we go to the player script where we have reset. This is only run on the client authoritative. So we want to change this now to be like, this will have to be a client RPC now. And we can have a timer on this. No, let's just leave it like that. So now this can be called by whatever. Let me see. Actually, I should rename it with this thing. So that it automatically updates the references. Yeah, because it's being used in the death zone. And so here it just automatically renamed it.
Can you
So
go over what your last change was?
right in the player, my change was to add this as an ARP client RPC and then rename it to RPC reset. So we can actually do something cool here because since our players are network game objects and they have the network identity, we could technically send the game object reference through a command. So in our death zone, in that death zone script, where the death zone tells the player to reset, we can instead make it so that the death zone tells the player to die and then tells the server, well, actually, we can have we can create a new function where the player dies, and then the player tells the game manager, hey, I want to respawn. And that way, the game manager is handling the respawn and the player isn't handling their own respawn. So we can make a new thing in here, call it command. So, and this can be called by our death zone. And then here, we're going to copy this. Actually, no, that's not going to work. Because this is only, this commands can only be run by the local client, and then they are run on the server. So it's like we shouldn't have an issue where someone else's copy of a player leaves the death zone and then tries to kill them, but then they get killed on your screen, but then not on the server. Because since this is a command, that will inherently not happen because the command can only ever be run off of your local player. We might get an error where it complains that we're trying to run a command off of a non-owned thing. So we could just put a check in here where we just check the name since we're using the local player name hack thingy. So we do like p.name, yeah. No, p.name object. If p.game object name is not equal local. So this should catch. Or is it local client? Local player, yeah. Do you guys have this, or do you want me to like put it in the doc? I would have tried like an Excel or like a Google Sheets, and I could have different sheet tabs for the different scripts here. But I don't, that was not clean pasting text into a Google Sheets. Actually, wait, maybe it is. Let me try. Oh, it is. Okay, that's a much better idea, actually. All right, I'm going to use Google Sheets instead. I can just make new tabs. No, nothing's been put into that function yet. I just posted a new link. So now I can actually make new sheets and rename them. So this is going to be 140. Nice. Okay. And then I can even make one for the player too. And then for the player, I'm just going to copy these two functions here. Okay. What else? We can actually put stuff in here now for the command kill player. We want this to, on client side, we want this to like disable the player object and then tell the server side game manager, hey, I want to respawn. But since this is a command, it's already run on the server. So from here, we can directly access the game manager instance and it'll be the server's copy of it. But then we have to also do like an RPC to do a client side death basically. So in the game manager, we can put a, I'm just gonna copy the one from here. It's gonna be this public void respawn player. Yeah. And actually, I don't really like most of this. So in this script, oh, actually, no, this doesn't matter because it's not, it's run on the server, so it's technically not networked. I was going to say that in the game object, since it's got a network identity, but it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. So game manager dot respawn player. I did call it respawn player. Respawn player. Yeah, there we go. It's going to be server side. And what that's going to do is we can do a different kind of respawn depending on what the game state is. So like if it was the game end game state, we would do nothing because you can't respawn when the game's already over, or like, but then for all the other ones, we would want to put in a respawn thing. So I'm going to also copy that from in here, and it's a coroutine. No, it's not. It's a function. It's okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what we can put this. So that's what, okay, yeah. So if we want to have a delay on this, then we need to make a coroutine for it. So I'm just gonna copy this one, put it down here, and call it respawn time. And then this one's going to be, we also need the player. And this will be so that I don't have to do, so that I don't have to reassign player.get component player from the player game object. I'm just going to pass in the player component directly. And this is okay because this is all running on the server and it doesn't have to go through a command. So normally if this was a command, you couldn't do this because this is not a supported variable type. And then here I'm just going to do p.rpc. So this is one client or server side. So the server tells reset. And then right now nothing will happen because nothing actually calls this. So we gotta call it in here. So if the game stays idle, we can do the time. We're gonna hard code to be 5 seconds.
Can you zoom out a little bit so I can see the whole of that respawn code?
Oh yeah. Well, I can just copy it.
Yeah.
Where was it?
Thank
It
you.
was at the bottom here. Do you have to tell your professor to zoom out all the time? I feel like that'd be a common problem. Like, you know, showing the document cam. It's like, oh, can you move the page? I don't know what a CSV class looks like. Oh, cool. I can't just copy paste this into here. Cool thing. Oh, that's, yeah. It's all one cell, so you can't like scroll down. Yeah, this is why I didn't want to use Google Sheets, because you can't like scroll partially down a thing. You have to look at the whole thing. Is that? Oh, there is a scroll bar. Okay, cool. All right. So what we have here is now what happens is after the game's initialized and we're ready to start the game, we can finally respawn the players. We just turned respawning into a networked thing because before it was all client side, where when you die, which is whenever you leave the death zone, because it says on trigger exit, whenever you died, it would call the local script, the local function for reset. Now we've changed that. So instead of doing that, whenever you die, it does the command to kill the player. And what this command does is it will call the function inside the game manager to respawn this player on the server side. And now that we're on server land, all of this is happening in the server. The server has its own game state. The server has the player object, the server's copy of the player object. It'll check what game state we're currently in, and if respawning is allowed, then it'll start the coroutine to respawn. The coroutine to respawn takes in the player component so that I don't have to do this thing again. And it has a time, and then we're just hard coding the time in here. So the time is how much of a delay we want after you die until you respawn. because the respawn's instantaneous, we're not going to have like a force field or like something like that, like how Smash Bros does. But so you die, and then you come back after 5 seconds, which might be a lot. I'm just gonna make it 3 seconds instead. And then, yeah, rip iframes. You can implement that on your own. So, but what we currently have here is the server can tell the player when to respawn or when to reset rather. But we still don't have anything in here that tells us to die. So we leave the death zone, but then we're technically still alive and can do stuff. Technically this is fine because there's no flying. So once you fall off the map, you can't really do anything. So, I mean, if you guys are okay with it, I'm just gonna leave it like that. I mean, the really easy way to do it is just make a new client RPC. And this is where it gets into subjective territory because now you're gonna have like a million commands and RPCs just for this one thing. And there's probably a cleaner way of doing it, but that we're not worried about that for now. So this is run on the server. And then this will be run on the client. And here we want to put in, well, first this check, because it'll be running on, actually, no, we don't want to check because it'll be for everyone. And we can just do body.constraints. So now once we leave and die, we can't move anymore. And then I'm also going to put this in here. Oh, wait, actually. Yeah, it's going to be, since we have everything locked except for X and Y, I think it'll be easier if we can like unfreeze. Actually, that's not worth it. So instead, I'm just not going to worry about it, and we're just going to turn off the mesh. P dot, nope. This dot. That won't work either because it's a child. Okay, never mind. We're not going to do anything visual. So instead, debug.log error, because we are on a, it's going to be a build. So errors are the ones that show up. We're in client. You died. Okay. And then here. Oh, thank you, Anthony, for typing that. That's exactly what I wanted. This second object. So because this is the server's copy, the names are going to be different because no one's going to be the, well, yeah, you can have that. Yeah, that should be fine, actually. Bitwise equivalent of and exclamation. I don't know what that means. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know what these squiggly lines do. Hopefully this works.
It's basically saying and not. So you're saying the body constraints equals freeze all, but not freeze position X, but not freeze position Y.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these will go on the reset because this is the I'm alive. And this will be yeah. So moving. And this will be start moving because you are alive. I believe. Okay, we don't have a Boolean for alive or dead, but that'll be handy because oh, we do have a Boolean for alive, we're just not using it. Now we get to use it. Since when we're dead, we can't we shouldn't be able to shoot. Why is it complaining about a squiggly line? Curly boy with no friend. Oh, it's because of this. So here in the RPC, we can actually no. This is going to be a sync var because we want the server to decide whether or not we are alive or dead. So now whatever the server has, the player will have as well. So in the command to kill this player, this is run on the server. Just put this alive equals false. And where the server tells you to respawn is back in the game manager. This is just an RPC reset, which we could probably have. Yeah, a good programming practice would be to have yet another function in here, like server side reset. And then inside the server side reset, call RPC reset. But for what we have here, this is effectively that. So we could put it in here where we put like p.alive equals false. And this should work because this player reference is the player reference from this game object, which is the same game object that just died. So that should work. But just for like good programming practice, you can do void server reset player. And then in here, we call RPC player reset. RPC. So you can call RPCs from within itself. And this is just having to keep track of that this is running on the server still. And these are kind of in order. Yeah. And now instead of calling RPC reset in the game manager, we call server reset player. And then we don't use this here. So now the only thing the game manager does is tell the server's copy of the game of the player to reset. And then in the player, we just handle p.alive equals false. And this is also where we could turn lives. Oh, we don't need p.alive anymore. Yeah. This is also where we can change the lives to be server side. Because right now, this is still client side. And then up here, it's not a sync var. So we can turn that into a sync var. And instead of doing these lives check down here, we will put this inside the server reset player. So if the lives are greater than 1, then we are okay and we are allowed to reset. And then if we don't, this error is only going to be run client side or server side, sorry. So server is player and out of lives.
Hey, Alberto, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Why are we setting alive equals false there when we already set alive equals false in command kill this player?
This should be true. Because now we're alive. Yeah. simple mistakes. And you'll wonder why it's not working. And like, it's not an error, it's just a bug that you didn't catch. But yeah, so in the time between command kill this player and server reset player, the time between those two functions being called is determined by this delay right here, which could be a variable called respawn time or like respawn wave time, but we're just hard coding it for now. And so like during that intermission time, alive will be set to false. And since it's a sync bar, now we can do stuff with it client side. So in our attack script, where we already referenced the player here. In our fixed update, yeah, private player P. So in our fixed update, if we're not alive, we shouldn't be able to shoot. So we can just add in right here, if, copy this into a second line. If not P dot alive, then return. So if we're not the local player, don't shoot or do anything. And if we're not alive, don't shoot or do anything. You could put it as like an and in there, but I think this is just easier to read, but it's up to you. The only caveat to this is that because we're using a sync bars aren't perfectly synced. So there's gonna be a slight delay because the sync interval is like 1/10 of a second or something like that. And that's based on what the setting is in your network manager. So one way to mitigate it is to just decrease that interval, or just don't care about it, or deliberately send it in your commands and RPCs. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but that's just something to keep in mind. So like you put in like Boolean and then pass it through there, because commands and RPCs are going to be more instantaneous than a sync bar. But this is fine for now. Yeah, and what else do we have here? At this point, oh yeah, so at this point we have like a fully networked respawning, because now we've turned the one respawn function into 4, just because we have 2 for killing the player. One's a command and one's an RPC. And then we also have 2 for resetting the player for the same reason. One's a command and one's an RPC. Well, this one's not a command, but it's run on the server. So it's like 2 for every single one. And now we still have this error where the server tells us that we ran, or the server knows that this player ran out of lives, but the player doesn't know that they ran out of lives. So we could do a check-in here, or we can implement that server message thing. So that's just gonna be really easy, because that's just, we can put that in our game manager, and strings are networkable. So what happened here, just copy over. If I can find it. Oh, it might not be in the game manager, it might be in my, yeah, it's in my, okay, no worries, it's in my Canvas script, which is irrelevant to this. So instead, I'm just gonna create a new one. So public void server message string, and then we can do public or private actually. This would be client RPC. And so this means that we can only ever call an RPC server message from the game manager server side. So we couldn't have, like, it's just like a layer of security, I guess, where if you want to send a server message from some other script, it has to go through the server side server message function first. Because you could just have this be public, but then you have to make sure that wherever you're calling it from is server side. But then here we can just go ahead and put this check in here. And then now we just know that this will be server side. And then this will be client side. And then all we do in here is call this with message. And then in here, we just do debug.log error. Errors are the ones that show up. And maybe you can put server message. And then plus the message. And now that we have this, we can call it from the player. This is the server side, so we can do game manager.instance server message. And this will be or rather we ran out of lives. Everyone got that. Is anyone stuck? Do I need to explain something again?
Not about the code, but I just realized I didn't add a game manager to my scenes. I just wanted to verify which
We
one.
haven't. No, we haven't done that yet.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, you would just add it on an empty game object. And it'll be like, you can just put it at the top of your hierarchy. What else do we need? What else do we need? We have resetting. We have server messages. I guess we should be able to test it now. We currently aren't really doing anything yet for response. Yeah, I don't think. Where are we calling this from? Command kill player, yeah. So the only time we're calling this is from that. So currently we aren't doing anything with our game states yet. Oh, actually this won't work because the default game state is none. So I'm just gonna add this to here too. Yep. So nothing's changing the game states yet, but we're just gonna be in game state none by default. Make a build of this and see how it works. So now we can actually put the game manager in our scene. An empty game object, put at the top of the hierarchy. Oops. And since it's a network behavior, it mirror automatically put in the network identity for us. We can see we can change the game state. We can see that it's a sync bar. Starting lives, current lives, we aren't actually using those yet. The size is 0. We should be able to tell that this changes size. We can test that. Local player, is local player being set anywhere? I don't think so. On start. No, we're not using that yet. All players. Yeah, okay. save this and then go back to our offline scene. Host server plus client. Okay. Oh, wait. Hey, all right. So I respawn after 3 seconds. I can add some more debug messages to know exactly what's going on. But that seemed to work just fine. So the server says we died. Oh, I can check the actual values in here. So, okay, current lives, yep, 1. We're at 0 lives. Oh, because we're not setting the value. I don't think we're going to use this actually, so that's fine. Check our local player. Here we have 1 life left, so if we respawn or die again, we have 0 lives. This is our last life. Oh, okay, so it didn't let us respawn with 1 life. So we got an error. So this player ran out of lives, local player message, and then we got our server message. So this message is on the server side, but this message is on the client side. But in this particular case, we're both since we're hosting. But yeah, that is desired behavior. I'm going to add some more debug comments just so that we know what's going on. So
my player did not respawn after he died.
oh, well, let's add some more debug scripts and maybe we can see what's going on. Or debug error lines thingies. So client, you died, and then client server, this player died, and then server, this player reset, and then client. Oh, and then also just as a check, we can put if just in case you accidentally run this from somewhere that's not on the server side. Oh, we can put, yeah, okay. So you said that you died. Did you get the message that you died? And then if you did not respawn, did you go like it should have gone through this game state checker, and then you make sure that you have a start coroutine for the thing in the state none, because that's the default state, or you could just change the default state, which
I found it. I didn't have the state none doing a coroutine.
yeah. It could have also been that because we have initialized game here still, so the game state idle would have also happened. Need this. Oh, so you just had respawn after delete without the start coroutine, you said, right?
Repeat that. I didn't have the start coroutine under state none.
Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. So you start the coroutine, respawn after delay, which does this, and it calls this, which is in here, which is this one, which tells the server that this player respawn. Yeah, actually, yeah. Let me also check to see if how our alive boolean is doing. So I'll zoom out of this or something so I can tell. We should be like frozen in midair when that happens. Oh my goodness. Because you don't freeze in midair. So we're not freezing in midair. Client, you died is not being run. Why not? Oh, it's because we're never calling it, of course. It should be called in here. Let's see if it actually called it. No. We call it in the command. Interesting. All right. So this run on the server tells the client to respond to die. And then this is from the client died. So it should freeze our constraints. Ooh. Okay, yeah, that's fine. And then I did not check if we can still. Yeah, getting the respawning working will be the hardest part, because then the state machine is just basically keeping track of that respawning happening. And then you can all, since we made our lives sync bars, we can even just have the game manager directly alter the number of lives you have, and it'll correctly synchronize. Okay, yeah, now we're getting client you died. Client respond. Nice. And then I can check if we're freezing. We are freezing. And I cannot attack. Excellent. And I ran out of life. I ran out of lives, so I'm just stuck down there, which is fine. Cool. We can make a client message for the number of lives we have. What do you do to fix the freezing? Oh, we just had to call RPC kill this player because it was never being called. So I'm calling it in the command kill this player.
Oh, I have one suggestion where it says game manager.instance.respawn player. Let's only call that if the lives are more than one, just like in the server reset player. Because I noticed that it was setting the alive variable to true even if we ran out of lives.
Oh, okay. So you want me to move this?
No. Up where in CMD kill this player,
yeah.
Game manager.instance.respawn player do if lives greater than one at first.
Actually, I think this whole thing should be up there instead. Yeah. Good suggestion. Yeah, so now check this. I make this greater than or equal to 1. It's you have 3 lives. Die once, you have 2 lives. Die 3 times. You should be able to die 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that works out. Because then you're under your 0 lives, and then yeah, else this player had lives, you ran out of lives. Put this at the top.
Should that be lives greater than equal to 1?
Yeah, that's what I put. It's like you should be able to die 3 times. So you start with 3 lives, and each of those lives are the number of times you can respawn. If you have 1 life, you should still respawn. And then if you have 0 lives, you should not respawn. And then when you do respawn, it's like a forced respawn. Yeah. So we can put a boolean in here to check if we want to auto respawn. Because then what would happen is in our game manager, once we like forcibly kill people to reset them. Oh, actually, no, that's not an issue because we can just call server reset player. No. All right, never mind then. Cool. So we fixed that. And now we can finally do stuff with the game manager game state. The initial game state is just waiting for players. And what we can do is it'll wait for players for 5 seconds and then do initialize game. But instead of doing that, we can check to see if there's enough players before initializing the game, which I don't think we even need to initialize the game since it's just you get in there and you just go. So I'm just going to rename this to like start game. And then if and all players dot count oops, greater than 1 or yeah, at least 2 players before the game actually starts. And we start the game. Else, then we redo the coroutine. That doesn't cause any issues. I don't think I've ever run a coroutine from within a coroutine. I think that should work. I think in my old script, yeah, okay, so in my old script, I did the check somewhere else. The initialized game is where I did the check for if I have enough players. It should be fine. If not, we can just fix it after. Yep, okay, so the game start, or the scene is loaded. We do the start function. In our start function, we want to check if we're not the server. If we are the server, we create an array of all the lives of all the players, which we're not even using. So I'm just gonna, after the server starts, we will start the coroutine to wait for the players. After 5 seconds, we'll check if there's at least 2 players and then start the game. If not, we'll wait for players again. After we do start the game, we do this check again. And we're going to regenerate the list of all the players to get just the list of players in the game. And starting game, we can make this start. We'll start in intermission time. Oh, that's why. Okay. We can just make the intermission time 5. Okay, it's already 5. Cool. 5 seconds. Current state is game idle. Current lives is equal to that. I'm just going to ditch this part, this intermission time, because we're already using that for the waiting for players. So we can just go ahead and start the game here instead. Starting the game. And this is the server message, so we can call that. So now all the clients will see that. And I don't need this one anymore. Our game state will now be state in game. And I'll do this at the beginning. Before we do that. Now we actually in the game. This will reset. Oh, we can reset people's lives in here and also force people to respawn. So each player, yeah, player. So now we can do reset. Reset. So this list is going to be server side, but because we made lives a sync bar, and because we turned respawning into something that's done server side, we can call those functions in this function, and then it should just work. So for each player, we're going to set their P lives to 3, or actually starting lives. And we're going to p dot reset player. Reset. Server reset to front up. We want this one actually. Let me just check what that does. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what we want. So does that make sense? I feel like that was kind of straightforward, but I need to clarify anything there. Because at this point, we have like half of the game loop already. Now, the other half is just gonna be checking once there's only one person with lives left. Okay. So now the game's going, and we need to check if people are dying, right? We want to end the game once only one person's left with lives. So how can we do that? That's a very good question. We could have a list of booleans or an array of booleans for the players, and then just like have the booleans be like if any like still alive or still has lives, or like out or something like that. And now once there's only like one out left, then you can end the game. A kind of like a not maybe not ideal, but it'll work. So actually, I don't want to use this array anymore, but I'm just going to leave it there. Instead, use an integer. Make it private because we only want the server to have it. Private int called players out. Number of players out. So what we can do is, as long as the number of players out is less than the number of total players minus 1, then the game's still continuing. So the game will end once there's only one player left who's not out. And we can make this, when the game starts, we will do it right here, is equal to 0. And then every time someone dies, we can do that in player actually. Whenever this check's happening, and right here, this is on the server side, so we can call the game manager instance. Oops. And right here, do game manager instance. Oh, it's private, right? Silly me. Let's be public. Unless we make a new function that can change it, but whatever. Live. Players out, sorry, is equal to plus 1. This is probably not the best way of doing it, just because like if you kill a player twice and they're already out, if I put a boolean to see like already out, and then don't do this if they're already out. What does Anthony say? Using system.link. That way we don't have to manually populate current lives. But I don't understand that, unfortunately. Okay. So this will add 1 to the number of players out once you run out of lives. And ideally, this only ever gets called once, but just as like a check in here, update out. Let's also make this the same. Well, it doesn't have to be server side. And then put that in here as well. So it also gets reset. Already out. And last but not least, if not, already out. And we make already out true. So true. And yep, that should work. So this will be adding so now that we know how many number of players are out, we can actually do something with it. And oh, I just realized that we could probably just make it a function. Yeah, that's a better idea. We can put that right after the start game. No, right here. Now we can actually do stuff on it without having to. Yeah, that's perfect. So now instead of doing this, we do here. And instead of doing that, we do player out. So what this do is do the check in here to see if the game should end. So whenever player out is called, we do the check. If the number of players out is left or +1 to the all players, but and this is not be perfect because if someone joins the game while it's going on, this will be wrong. This will be fine now. So oh, actually, that should be fine. Yeah, that should be fine, actually. Because this refreshes every time someone connects. But like if you had a list, if you had a separate thing, where like you kept track of who was in the game and who's like in a lobby who just joined the game but isn't like in the match, that would be a separate list. But we're not checking for that. So this is just anyone who's like in the server is in the game. And game state is a sync bar. So like if you join the game mid game, the game state will update. Even though I mean that's just something that's nice to have if you're doing stuff client side, but for what we have right here, none of this is client side. So you have the updated game state, but it won't matter, but it's there anyway. So now in here, we can finally end the game and have a game loop. This will be private. Actually, these should all be, this one should all be, okay, yeah. These are private, okay, good. So private void. If left. And then we can actually put a yeah, this should be fine. And now we can change our game state again. Game state dot state game end. And now if we try to respawn, it won't let us because we're in the game end. But people run out of lives anyway, so it's not like that's gonna make a huge deal. And also what we can do is we can send server messages to everyone with their status. So we can put server message. What that means is their victory status. So for each player, we're going to check if p dot lives 0. We're going to do server message. Oh, that's going to go to every single player. Yeah, server message isn't set up per player. It's set up for just the entire server. Because we can do, yeah, so here's just an example of like why you put in is not local player inside an RPC. Because RPCs are run on every copy of that instance. So in this case, the RPC can be called from anywhere, or it can be triggered by any client basically, and it'll be run on the server, and then the server tells the client to do it. But there's no check in here that's saying like, oh, if I'm the local player or if I'm not the local player. But that wouldn't work here because you don't have authority of the game manager. So that becomes a more complicated Boolean to check that I'm not going to get into, but yeah, just something to keep in mind that this is not per player. Like you couldn't send a private message to a player. So instead, what we can do is, I don't know, you guys have any ideas on what to do with the winning player? We can make them have no gravity or something. But then of course we gotta reset that in the reset game function. So I'm just gonna put just a simple server message. Oh, I know we can put, this is gonna be kind of hacky because it won't work in the long run, but just put a function in our player called and then just simply if lives. Oh, actually, I can make this a Boolean because then we have the server doing it. Oh, that's not how you do Boolean. That's not how you do statements. If winner, debug.log error, client, you won the game. And then else, client, you lost the game. And then put like a bunch of exclamation points. You're really happy that you won the game, and you get really excited. There. And then we call this from our game manager. And we can do it in here if p dot lives is equal to 0, or actually, then p dot winner or p dot RPC for win is false because you lost the game because you didn't have any more lives. Else, you won the game because you still have some lives left.
You could put the check p.lives greater than 0 as the argument of RPC check for win.
What now?
Instead of an if, just put p.lives greater than 0 into the as argument.
Oh, that works like this?
Yeah, and now it just inverted because your if statement had it, the true false inverted. So make it less than, greater than.
Oh, that's cool. Or it has to be greater than. So I'm going to comment here. Still have lives left. Cool. Yeah. And now the last thing we need to do is restart the game, and then that'll be the whole game loop. But luckily, we can do that right here. We just start the coroutine, waiting for players at the end here. And then let's make this like 10 seconds, just to make like the end game state be that long. And also, we never had a check in here. State, this will be game state idle. When we're waiting for players, we're just to be idle. And I don't think we use the game start, game state. In game, in game end. And then we don't respawn for that. We do respawn for idle in game, game start. Yeah, game start isn't being used. But I think that should be everything at this point, because now we're checking. Oh, yeah, okay, so whenever someone goes out, it adds one, and if, so this will be, if there's two players playing, this will be one. This won't work if someone accidentally disconnects, because then they'll just win. Well, I guess that's fair, because if you disconnect, then you can't win, you just lost the game. This should actually, that's kind of messed up, so if it's greater than or equal to, just in case. Then you don't soft lock the game. Let's test it, shall we? Oh, this time I actually have to make a build. Oh wait, I need to put some more command or some more error commands in here, messages in here. But server this might be like doubling up because I think I already put that in here. Yeah, this player ran out of lives. Oh, that's fine. But server adding 1, 2 players. And then also just as a sanity check, I'm just going to put this in here. This one here too, server. What else? Oh, waiting for players, yeah. Server. So server plus client. Okay, waiting for players. And it should start the game. Oh, we're still waiting. Oh, yeah, because we have at least 2 players. All right, so I guess it's time to make a build. Oh crap, I'm set to Linux. Bear with me for a moment as this thing switches over to Windows. It might take a minute. How's everyone else's project going along? Everyone's been quiet.
I got lost for a bit, so I'm honestly just gonna wait for you, like, to rewatch this.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm running a server and client. I just keep getting waiting for players message over and over, even though there are 2 players.
That might be because did you put all players count is greater than or equals to 2? Maybe all players count isn't being updated
Yes.
properly. Oh, you can put, I know. Like do waiting for players. Right. See like how many number. Maybe that's not being. Oh, wait, no, yeah, this is only being run by the server, so that should be good to go right there. Okay, it didn't clear what I just wrote. Yeah, on player disconnected. Okay. Server side should work. Let me see what mine does. Yeah, like the only thing I think of is that it's not properly adding players to the list.
Yeah, I just checked. It's not adding players to the list. It always says it stays empty all the time.
Oh, okay. Well, add range, find object of type player. This function is just looking in the hierarchy to see if there's game objects that have this component on there. Did I like rename something wrong? It just copy pasted from the other project. Class player. Players. Interesting. Yeah, that's a tricky one. I get the feeling find objects of type is not working properly.
Also, this is a bit unrelated, but my attacks aren't working. They're not knocking back the other player. So like I'd just suggest after we're done writing the code, maybe we can just go through everything, see if all of our codes match.
Did you use the package or are you using your product from last week?
Well, I used the package,
because you have to
but I imported it over what I did last time.
Oh. Huh. So yeah, so you should have the project settings for it already. If your attacks aren't registering, maybe the the layers weren't set, but you said that you're using the product from last week. All right, let's see what this does. Post plus server. Oh yeah, I'm still getting 0. If I can connect. Let's see if I can. Yeah, it's not adding. That's interesting though, because it was adding it before. Okay, yeah, current lives is 0 now, but it was actually changing the size of that array earlier. So what changed? Oh, maybe this is getting cleared somehow.
Well, I checked for references. Every clear is followed by the add range. So
Interesting, because it was totally working before. Huh. Well, this is game dev for you. On player disconnected, on player connected. Start routine wait for players. All players dot count. Yeah. Well, that's unfortunate. Because this piece of code was working before, because that was being set to 1.
isn't the player connected supposed to be referenced by something?
This
Yeah.
this should just be a default mirror thing. Yeah. Oh, what? Network player. Depreciated. Huh. Use network again. Oh, that's right. That's what I did. Interesting. Well, the other thing I can think of is maybe the instance isn't being set properly. It's like maybe there's copies of it, and so maybe one of the copies that isn't on the server is sending that message. Um, oh, this is gonna be compiled. Specific debug messages. They aren't being called at all, then they don't legitimately won't know what to do because they were working earlier. If they are being called, they're not being called. Great. So where could this have gone wrong? Oh, wait, no. Why is this color? Oh, it should be. Um, because it didn't even change even after you connected, which for sure would have worked. It's already running. It's not. It's like first starting. Try something here. Put this here. I think if I remember correctly, at one point it was. Yeah, that might be it. This will fix the problem. So tell me that there's no players, and then it should try again, but then it'll refresh the list. It still says 0. Okay, so that means that Oh, okay. Oh, it changed it. Okay, perfect. Perfect. All right. So that's the workaround for now. Yeah. So these aren't running for some reason. I have no idea why. But at least this is working. Nice. I'm just gonna comment these out.
What type does Game Manager extend? Because I can't seem to find any like, because usually these things are like a virtual method in the underlying class.
It's a
Yeah, I just
network behavior.
like if I try to type on player connected, I don't get any autocomplete for it.
Are you using Mirror?
Yes,
Huh. Interesting.
like I don't get that.
Oh, wait, but oh, you know what? Maybe the latest version of Mirror got rid of it. I don't know. That could be possible.
Is
In
your
fact,
other autocorrect for Unity working? Because it could also be something where the setup for Unity is not right.
well, my autocorrect is working. Like I can type Unity dot, and then I get all the options. But when like if I just type on, I don't get anything.
Well, regardless, I think the code just never worked. But then because in this game manager, I was refreshing the list in my initialize, and then the initialize was waiting for players. I think that's why I never ran into that issue before, because I was doing this elsewhere and not just in the beginning. So now, if you refresh the players when there aren't enough players, then now it starts working actually. I just got rid of these guys over here and then added in refreshed the list down here. And we could just put this in here too. Now I'm going to build it and start it. And now it should work. This is game dev for you. Things never work out the way you want them to, and then you have to figure out why things went wrong. And sometimes it's just functions that don't get called for whatever reason. But you get there eventually. Comp sci in general, really? It's a good thing I'm not a comp sci then. Where is my exe? It should have ran. I clicked building one. Oh, here it is. Come on. Come on. Bean build. Oh, it's starting the game. It's starting the game. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to add was the message whenever you respawn to tell you how many lives you have. Because right now you die and you don't know how many lives you have. Oh, I respawned, but I
Oh, I actually think I found the issue. Remember when we put that if statement, if lives greater than 1 into the other function?
Yeah.
Let's see, perfect. Can I, what was that function? Come on. I think it was in, oh yeah, it was in player, the damage percent and body lock velocity and body lock position have to stay in server reset player.
where?
So like in the player script under command kill this player,
Yeah.
where it has like damage equals 0, vector 3.0, I think that has to stay in server reset
Oh,
player.
yeah, you're right, you're right. So I will put these in, what is this being called? These have to go in here.
Wait, shouldn't be reset this player and not kill this player?
Oh yeah, actually.
Yeah, like one function down, basically.
You're right. Yeah, that's that, yeah. Okay. Joseph wanted me to go over the instantiating prefabs. And this works mostly now. Like 90% there. So we're gonna just quickly go through what the slides I have for instantiating is. So part 3. I don't have like any coding for this. It's just gonna be the slides because honestly, I don't quite understand it myself. But if you just follow the tutorials that are there, it should just work out. So object pooling is when you want to spawn lots and lots of the same prefab. I stole this image from the general guide link right there. That general guide does a really good job of kind of explaining what object pooling is and how to implement it, but it's not networked object pooling. And then for that, Mirror has a boilerplate code that you can just copy paste, and it'll just work. The code they provide, or the template they give you, is a simple network object pool. And then, well, I need to explain what an object pool is. So instead of instantiating and destroying hundreds of prefabs in a short time, you want to have a dedicated pool of those same objects that are created at the beginning, and then you just recycle them over and over again. So you're not constantly instantiating and destroying them. And the game objects that are created are taking turns being active or inactive. And like when a game object's inactive, it's whenever you click the checkbox and it turns gray, it's not being like simulated in the scene. It's just idle, basically. So you can have hundreds of game objects just loaded already, and the impact is going to be minimal because you loaded them already at the beginning, and you can have a lot of them active at the same time, and you're not instantiating them or destroying them because they're already there, right? So the network aspect of it is such that you're not networking. You wouldn't be networking that instantiation. You'd only be networking the activation or deactivation. And then there's a couple ways of doing it, but let me just go to the next slide. So object pooling can be way more efficient than instantiating and destroying lots of objects. And then one of the reasons for that is because whenever you instantiate and destroy an object, you have the CPU has to allocate and deallocate that memory in the RAM. And so if you're doing lots of that, it'll just get bogged down. But if you have hundreds of them already instantiated from the beginning, then you don't have to worry about deallocating the memory. So the use cases for object pools are when you have a lot of projectile spam or bullets, and they're all the same thing, like a bullet hell game, or you have like a grenade or projectile base class that then that's just one prefab, but then since it's a base class, your scripts can like modify it to whatever it needs to be. But that one prefab could be an object pool because then it's reused. And then another use case could be for canvases or HUDs, where you have like in an FPS game where you're being shot at, you have a damage indicator ring that shows you like which direction you took damage from. And so if you want to have one new like indicator for every time you get hit, then you could have, let's say, 20 of them in a object pool, and you wouldn't have to instantiate or destroy them as you create those little canvas elements. And then when you don't, when should you not use object pooling? You probably shouldn't use it whenever you only have like one or two things you need to instantiate at a time, because then the benefits of having hundreds of them already loaded is overshadowed by just the fact that you're really only doing it a couple times. And this is kind of subjective too. Like you might have, let's say you have a grenade gun and it shoots grenades, but it shoots them really slowly. Maybe it's okay not to use an object pool there because you're never going to have like 100 of these grenade projectiles on the screen at once. It's really up to you. And then, yeah, so you just go through those two guys that I put there, and that's going to have everything you need to do stuff with object pooling. The other way is without object pooling. So normally what you do is you just do like game object instantiate and then whatever the prefab is. The only thing that changes for networking prefabs is, for one, they have to always be instantiated on the server, and then you can use network server.spawn and then that object that you just spawned. And then what network server.spawn does is it transmits that instantiation to the clients. You can instantiate stuff client side, but then you just have to remember that whatever object you just instantiated is only client side. And so like the example for that are typically ragdolls are client side, because you don't really want the server to be simulating a ragdoll and then having to network how all those bones are moving in physics. Like that's a lot of stuff to network. So the efficient way is just to have those ragdolls be spawned on each client and then have the client do their own ragdoll simulation. But yeah, you can decide whether something needs to be instantiated server side and then needs to be communicated to the clients or not. So like this is where you would put that one grenade object. Oh yeah, one other thing that you need to do is the game manager has, or not the game manager, the network manager has a section in it called like register prefabs or something like that. And I could show it too, but any prefabs you use like this, where you do network server.spawn, that prefab needs to be registered in the network manager. And then there's also a way to register prefabs on the fly, which will probably be useful once you have lots and lots of prefabs, or it becomes impractical just to register every single one you need. But yeah, you can easily find those commands on the documentation. And I just have some examples here. I already mentioned the client side thing, but then so let's say there's two ways you could handle a bullet that's a projectile rigid body. So the first way is you spawn it on the server, then you do this network server spawn object, and then that's all you do. And then you just have the prefab have a network transform on the projectile. So that way the server is doing all the calculations for the velocity and the physics for that bullet or that projectile. But then the problem is if you have lots of projectiles, then that's a lot of stuff to go over the network. And so that might cause lag. So the other way of doing it is, instead of using a network transform, you just have each client run their own simulation of that same projectile. So you spawn the projectile on the server, and then whatever velocity the server has, you pass that on to their fake projectile. So it's a lot easier with the object pool scripts that you can find, because it already does the example B. There's like you can modify it so that the function input takes in a velocity, and it'll pass. You can pass that velocity to the client. So the con of this is that because the client is simulating their own projectile, it won't match exactly with what the server has. And this is where you get into that territory of lag interpret or lag compensation or client side prediction or client client interpolation or rubber banding, where you can periodically check if the server copy matches the client's copy. And then if it doesn't match with a certain threshold, you can like make it bounce to the correct location or something. But ultimately, in either of these cases, the server has the authority on what that projectile does, and it's up to your code to handle that. Because otherwise, since they're both the exact same projectile being run on the server and the client, whatever script that's on your projectile would have like is server or is local player or is not is server. Oh, sorry, no, you wouldn't have local player because that's only for the when you have control of it. But you'd have is server or not is server. And that was the last thing I had for prefabs, because the final slide is just check out this example FPS from Unity themselves, because it's a fully networked FPS game by Unity that's totally open source. And they have this video lecture on some more technical aspects of networking, if you're interested in that. But otherwise, that was the last slide I had. And that instantiating is just looking at tutorials for it. But yeah. Anything else? Any comments? Any questions? Concerns?
I just want to say thank you. This was super helpful, Alberto.
Yeah, this is really cool stuff.
Okay, well, I guess that will conclude.